trying for the daily double, 2 videos in one day. And this is a follow up to the last video I made. The last video I made basically offered the proposition of we don't really have 100% certainty that other other people exist, that we can kind of assume we exist because we think, therefore we are, you know, so that we can say we exist, but we can't be sure that anything else exists or in what form it exists. Like the person that's standing across from you could be an illusion. It could be an image that a sentient mind is creating. It could be a video game simulation, etc. Now I don't believe that. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that, but I'm not 100% sure that that's impossible. And it brings up the idea of useful assumptions. Now, in this case, by far the most useful assumption is just to assume, with all the evidence pointing in that direction, that other people are real. They exist in their own framework, just like I do, and that and that the reality that I sense is mostly real. I mean, maybe a couple things that might be distorted, but the reality that I sense, that I perceive around me, is mostly the reality that actually exists. I mean, I believe that to be true, but also that is a useful assumption, and that interacting with the world in any other way just doesn't really make sense. I mean, it would not lead to my well-being. It would lead to careless decision making and indifference to myself and others, because I would kind of be the main character in my story. It could lead to reckless behavior. I mean, I posted earlier today that if this is a video game simulation, I'm hitting rage quit, which just means that the world is kind of messed up. And if there's nothing around me other than me, why would I want to participate in it? It's just like it'd be like a game. It's just I mean, like I said, I again, one more time, I firmly believe other people and other things exist as I perceive them, as I believe we all perceive them. But it's not 100% certain that that's the case. I could be in a video game and not know it. Yeah. And the idea behind that was that, that even though it's easier to believe that, that the things around us are real than to take that to a belief in God, but that a lot of people say if something isn't proven, then I'm not going to accept it. Well, then you'd have to kind of not accept your own or the existence of others, I should say, or maybe not your own existence. Again, I think therefore I am. I think that covers that, and also I'm really perceiving the things I'm perceiving. So anyway, but this brings up the concept of useful assumptions, and the idea behind this is that when you have two like opposing propositions, and it's an important issue, and both of them are more or less equal in truth value, or what you perceive their truth value to be, then go with the one that has more utility, especially if it's not close. So let me give a couple of examples involving agency. Okay, the first one would be free will. This isn't the Christian concept of free will. Can we freely decide to choose Jesus as our Lord and Savior, or is that just reserved for some people, as Calvinists believe? I'm talking about just our everyday actions. Well, let's take a look at this. Okay, so am I the one deciding what I do, or is there an outside force, or is it kind of a mix of the two? I mean, the possibilities are that I'm completely controlled by something else, and I just think I'm making my own decisions when I'm not. The second would be that there may be a force that forces me to do some things, but allows me to do choice in others. Another possibility is that while I do have agency to choose, that so many things that have happened in my life that I didn't choose, like where I was born, when I was born, to what family and what situation, and the experiences I shared, therefore would lead me to certain choices. So, do I really have free will if if my choices are more or less determined because of the things that have happened before? Which, and obviously, there's some truth to that. Obviously, all those things are going to factor into choices I would make in the present. Or fourth, that I'm free to choose with those factors, but I'm basically free to choose that right now I could choose to throw this computer across the room in frustration because I can't record a video in less than 10 takes. Yeah. Out of all those propositions, all those possibilities, all those propositions, the one that presents by far the most utility is the one that says that I'm the one who makes the choices in my life. Obviously affected by things in the past, but not determined by them. In other words, I could just say, you know what? I don't care what happened before. I'm going to do this. Which, because then people would say, well, that's because your personality is such that you decided that you were going to be defiant of the things that were. So, I mean, and you can play this game all the way back as long, just to amuse yourself as long as you want. But the bottom line is that that's the most useful. It's also the most plausible because I perceive that not only that I have a choice, but that I have to make a choice. I mean, I have to choose to do things or not do things. If I'm laying in bed, I can lay in bed all day, but that's still a choice. So between my perception that I have to choose actively hundreds and hundreds of times throughout the day, and couple that with the idea that by far the most utility is found in the proposition that I have to make a choice, because if I didn't have to make a choice, then I would be less responsible for my choices or my actions, I should say, because I can't choose anyway. So, what's the difference? Everything's pre-planned. I would develop a sort of fatalism that I'm just bound by my fate because I can't choose. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and I just have to deal with it. And that's obviously very unhealthy. So given those propositions, and being that we can't be sure that any one of those is true or false. I mean, they all could be true, but the one that comports most with my experience and the one that clearly is the most useful to me is the idea that I have to make active choices, that those choices obviously are affected by previous choices and things have happened in the past that I didn't choose, but that I'm still making a choice. And I don't have a free menu of choices, like I can't decide to fly to New York on my wings that I just grew. So I don't have unlimited choice, but I have a menu of options that I can choose from based on, birth, species, abilities, and such. And then upbringing, experiences. And then I choose based on that menu, of options. So again, the useful assumption is just to accept that I have choice. Now, I mean, and the bottom line is, if everything was determined, and I think that everything was determined, then that would be determined. So there's really no point in it. It's just kind of like an argument that just works its way to nothingness, because if I'm determined to believe things are determined, or believe that things are by choice, then that's just the determination. So there's really no sense in even kind of going down that road. So the second one, the other one I'm going to do is, and I think this is something people struggle with today, is my fault or someone else's fault? Now, unlike the first one, there isn't a clear answer. I mean, with everything that happens in our life, there is three general possibilities. It is completely our fault, it is partially our fault, it is not our fault. And all three of those come into play. I mean, being abused as a child is by and large not a person's fault. Deciding I'm going to get into my car and run over a group of people, and what happens because of that, and the arrest and the criminal trial and the conviction and being in jail, that is completely my fault. Most things don't land in that convenient little space of like, this is something I completely have to own because I did it all, and this is something which is more common than the first. This is something that I was born with, that I can't do anything about. And again, that does happen. But then there's that third category where we have to apportion how much of it's my fault and how much of it is another person's fault. And it's an open discussion. Like, let's take a work situation. Let's say I don't get a promotion at work that I want. Okay, is that because I didn't work hard enough? I didn't put enough hours? I wasn't reliable? My improvement wasn't where it needed to be? Or is it because the manager doesn't like me, because there's people who are talking behind my back, or because there's just other people that are just better at it, even though I was good, but other people were better, or things outside my control? Outside my direct control. I did my best, but other people were better, or whatever the case. So what then? Well, I mean, the first thing is obviously self-reflection and thinking, okay, let me honestly analyze the situation. Because taking responsibility for things we don't do isn't healthy. if we're not responsible, we shouldn't take responsibility for it. It's not healthy. There's nothing that can be done about that. And assuming that is just an exercise in futility. However, I think the useful assumption is when there is a case where we're kind of playing along the margins, like it isn't, we don't know if the manager didn't like us. We don't know this, if we could have done, the default that I use is that it's on me. It's my fault. I could have done better. I could have done something different. And this allows me to have agency. Because if it's my fault, that means I can fix it, which is actually hopeful. It's not defeatist, it's actually hopeful. So, in those cases where there's not a clear, this is not your fault, this is just, it's not your fault you were born in New Hampshire. Not that that's a bad thing, but, it's not your fault that you were put in this family, or that most cancers, wouldn't be your fault. I mean, there are some that, kind of are behavior influenced, but most of them are not. Then there's obviously things that are completely our fault, but all those things in the middle, when it's really hard to kind of determine, it's always best to assume it's my fault. Have the presumption that I could have done something different. That's actually empowering. I could have done this differently, and if I had, it would have been more success. Now, it may not help for that time. The promotion may be done. The person maybe I was trying to be romantic with left and went with someone else. So these decisions might be irreversible, but being able to reflect on that will allow me and realize I could have done better. Then next time maybe I will do better. But if I'm just like, well, I couldn't do anything about it, she just wasn't willing to go out with me. She wasn't going to give me a chance, or the boss was never going to promote me, then there's no way you can go with that. That's not a useful assumption. It may be true, and if you have enough evidence that it's true, then that has to be accepted, because, again, we can't take on things that aren't ours to own. I mean, if the boss wasn't going to promote you no matter what, and you know that, and then really, after solid self-reflection, there wasn't anything you could do, or they just that lady wasn't, or that man wasn't going to go out with you, and there's nothing you could do, or that person wasn't amiable to, working on the relationship. I mean, it's not healthy to hold on to that if there was really nothing you could have done better, or not, or nothing that you could have done to change it. You probably could have done something better, but wouldn't have changed the outcome. That's not a healthy thing to hold on to. But when there's doubt, when there's like, maybe I could have done it, maybe it was them, it's always best to err on the side of my fault. I'll reflect. I'll do better next time. Taking that responsibility, because without that responsibility, there's no opportunity for improvement, or for promotion, or for having anything better, because I'll always be at the behest of circumstances, and honestly, that's not a place I want to be. So, and there's other issues in life where useful assumptions come in handy, where we can't really determine the truth because there's opposing propositions are both at least in the ballpark of equally valid, and we have to kind of pick one to go with. And that's when we go with the one with more utility. And if they both have the same utility, then I guess you go with one that sounds better. But those are useful assumptions, and I think they help me make sense of the world. And I think most people do this anyway. And I know people will, and maybe I'll do a video on this later on, will say faith is kind of for some a useful assumption, that it's something that people just kind of assume because it makes them feel better. And that's something I'd like to work on and kind of look at. So, and I need to remind myself of that that I have that agency, and that the useful assumption is that I can make the choices and I have the agency to do better. So that's what I got for you, and have a great day.